So, this is just a helpful hint for this review, but because Ant-Man was originally called Tiny Man in the comics, symbolized by the T on his chest, that's what I'll be calling him throughout the video. So, before I begin the review, I'll just give you a basic summary. If you don't want any big spoilers, then go to this point in the video. We're introduced to a man named Scott Lang at the start of the movie, who of course becomes Tiny Man. It's also worth pointing out that he's a thief. Not the bad kind, but, you know, the kind that robs an old innocent person, which he does do later on in the movie. This is demonstrated by the following chart. Oh, and I should probably say spoiler alert, but if you check back to a previous image, I actually did. The text has just been exposed to Pym particles. Well, I can make a small joke off the list. On with the review. We're also introduced to characters like Hank Pym, the original Tiny Man, his daughter, Hope, or Happiness or something, I can't remember, and Yellow Jacket, represented by, you guessed it, the Blue Jacket. But he only matters later on in the film, so forget about him now. So Scott steals the suit, can't handle the concept of a suit that shrinks, somebody never used a washing machine, and then he not only gets caught by the police, but he gets caught returning the item he stole, officially making him the world's worst thief. Scott is let out of jail by Hank Pym, who convinces him to become Tiny Man and stop his former apprentice, aka Yellow Jacket, from giving everyone a Tiny Man suit, and gives him some frisbees which can make things grow or shrink in size. In return, he claims that his daughter's respect for him would finally be earned. So, Scott agrees and goes to steal a device which would allow them to infiltrate a base or something. But, while acquiring this device, Scott has to go toe-to-toe with everyone's favorite flying Avenger. Nope, keep going. I don't think she can fly. It's Falcon. You know, that guy in the Winter Soldier with the wings. Probably the most useless Avenger. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was portrayed well in this movie, and his fight scene with Tiny Man was one of the best parts of the film. But his only power is flying, and not even good flying like Iron Man. He has these giant, ineffective wings that can easily be brought down. I mean, look at this. This would never have happened if he had rocket boots or jet propulsion, or whatever it is Iron Man has to fly. But I guess he'll play a bigger part in Civil War, being the only person on Cap's team that can fly so far. So, Scott gets the device, goes to Pymtech, the home of Yellow Jacket, steals the suit, and blows it up, destroying all the Pym particles, which is the fuel that the Tiny Man suit runs on, except for the ones owned by Hank Pym and those that aren't personally owned by Yellow Jacket. So Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man fight, Ant-Man wins, but is then arrested, which only secures his position as the worst thief in the world, then has to fight Yellow Jacket again, but this time, when he beats him, he has to go subatomic, which is whenever you remove the part of the Tiny Man suit that prevents you from shrinking forever. Apparently, this is also what happened to Janet Van Dyne, who was Hank Pym's wife before she went subatomic and disappeared forever. Strangely enough, he didn't tell this to his daughter, because he didn't want Hope wearing the suit or fighting crime for fear that the same thing would happen to her mother. For the fear that the same thing that happened to her mother would happen to her, but I think that's pretty logical. I mean, if Hank didn't want that to happen, then it would logically make sense if she knew about her mother's death. I mean, if a close family member of yours died in a helicopter crash, you'd be a bit more reluctant to get in a helicopter, right? Anyway, Scott's able to jam some growth Pym particles from frisbees where a shrinking Pym particle should go, which returns him to his normal size exactly. The end. That's a pun. My main criticism about this movie would be how similar it is to other Marvel movies. I mean, the plot is about someone trying to make a weapon to sell to everyone, which would of course be devastating for, well, everyone. And that is extremely similar to the first Iron Man movie, and the second. Not so much the third. Not to mention that Sandman from Spider-Man 3 was doing the exact same thing for his daughter. Now, I don't have the video, but that's only because I didn't want to download a 2-hour movie for a 3-second clip. But here's a picture of the kids. I mean, they may as well have been the same child, except at least Sandman's daughter was sick. Scott was just doing this to see her. But other than that, I guess Cassie was fine. I only remember her name because it's the same name of Johnny Cage's daughter in Mortal Kombat X. Moving on. The special effects in this movie were actually pretty good, which is surprising considering... It's just word, you know? Which is surprising considering making someone tiny and shooting action scenes this way could be really difficult and could go horribly wrong. The costume that Ant-Man wore also looked pretty well done. It paid homage to the comic version while still looking realistic, and it was pretty good. And despite the fact that the main villain was superior to Ant-Man in every way, and under no circumstance should have lost, yet did, I like the character. But if I may dwell on that last statement a little longer, Scott really should have lost. I mean, Yellow Jacket has flight, lasers, and the powers of Ant-Man, except for, the previously mentioned discs. And it's not exactly like Marvel movies don't make their villains stronger, and that's fine. But in most cases, the hero only wins by being stronger or luring them into a trap. And Tiny Man does none of that. He just got lucky that Yellow Jacket was terrible at utilizing his armor, and dumb enough to stay big for so long. He took 7 seconds to kill someone he could have killed instantly with his laser. The fight could only be regarded as fair because Darren Cross was an idiot, and the Yellow Jacket suit was superior to Scott's. Like mixing hot and cold porridge, as the British say. I like pretty much all the characters, some more than others, however. I'm not sure why Hollywood keep making the cops out to be the bad guys in the movie. It's probably got something to do with the government basically being the third rag in Marvel movies. But I did find one plot hole in this movie, however. If you don't want to hear it, then click here to skip this part. If you're watching this on mobile,
your fate is sealed.
If Scott's regulator is broken, then surely whenever he replaced the shrinking pin particles with growing ones, he should have continued growing forever. And if you want to bring up the point that the discs eventually ran out of juice before he became giant, I find it pretty coincidental that he just happened to stop growing at the exact height he was before. Don't you? Overall, I thought Ant-Man was pretty good. Not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy, but much, much, much better than AAOU. I can call it that, right? I'm pretty sure that's the term. It's Avengers Age of Ultron anyway. I like the plot, the characters, the action, the dialogue, the references, and just the general feel of it. I guess some of the jokes could have been better, or at least not given so much attention while not actually being that funny. And the first after credit scene felt like it was just an addition to the current movie, and didn't really add anything new. And I think some hardcore fans were disappointed with Paul Rudd being cast, or Tiny Man's representation in the film, or the choice of writer for the film, which did get me angry as well, but as someone who reads the comics, I thought this movie portrayed him pretty damn well. I'd give this movie a 7 out of 10, doing the best it could with the character. Sorry. Thanks for watching my first ever video. If you want to suggest another movie, this is the plug, by the way, so if you're not going to bother subscribing or liking, you can skip this. Anyway, please subscribe and leave a comment. You can also leave a comment on how I was wrong about his name in the comics. That's right, I lied. I'm Bernard Spinround, and have a peachy day. That's how I'm going to finish all my videos now, you can tell me if it's bad or